In this video, we're going to be touching on our fully updated line of Fluval Test Kits. You see the line right here in front of you. We have got a video previously, but we've now fleshed out the line to incorporate a greater number of tests. Now, before we get into touching on each one individually, let me just point out how essential it is to be water testing on a regular basis. We all know that problems can arise in aquariums. You may have too much of a specific element or compound, you may have not enough. For example, in the case of a planted tank where you're constantly feeding it, or a reef where calcium and carbonate supplementation is super important. You need to be able to test water to have the quantitative numbers to know what's going on inside your aquarium. Super important. You can't just look at it and know. Test kits are really indispensable for that. Okay, so let's start with phosphate. Now, phosphate's very important. Say you have a really beautiful reef aquarium like the ones we have back here. Well, phosphate is a very important thing to be testing for on a regular basis. Excess of phosphate content really interferes with calcium absorption by corals, and on top of that, it is a problem with algae growth, for example, unwanted algae growth in both planted and marine tanks. Something you need to be aware of, something you must control in any aquarium. It's always important to know your phosphate level. Next up, nitrate, NO3. Now, we all know that nitrate is the final phase of the nitrogen cycle, but when it accumulates in a tank, or say it's present already in tap water, that can be the case, or you've added a lot of fish to your tank, you're feeding heavily, now the levels are really elevated, you may have a lot of natural driftwood in the tank, the levels have become elevated too, greater percentages of water changes are really required. How would you know that? Just by looking at the tank. Well, you would know it if you took a test. Really important parameter to know. Now we have the first two compounds of the nitrogen cycle, ammonia and nitrite. Now, nitrite, of course, NO2, ammonia, NH3, NH4, both very toxic nitrogen compounds. You know, bound to be a problem in a lot of newer tank installations. There's ways, of course, to cycle your tank to minimize it during that critical phase of an initial nitrogen cycle, but measuring the values of both ammonia and nitrite are key to knowing when it's safe for fish to be in the tank, or if you've surpassed a safe level for their safety and health. When it comes to pH, we actually have a set of 3 different test kits, wide, low, and high over here. Now, the reason you want to have these different test kits, I mean, for the average aquarist with a community tank, you can usually get away with a little bit of a wider range when you're taking your pH value. The wide range kit does accommodate, obviously, a wider range of pH. For those that are specializing in lower or higher pH type tanks, depending on what you're keeping, South America a little bit lower, if you've got an African cichlid tank a little bit higher, you want to have a test kit that maybe hones in on the range a little bit more accurately. In that case, we have those 2 specialized kits for you. Now, pH is an essential thing for fish. It's directly implicated in their blood systems. When you acclimate fish, you've got to make sure that any pH adjustments are done slowly, not to stress your fish. It plays into ammonia toxicity. The higher the pH range, the greater the percentage of gaseous ammonia that is existing in the tank at that time, the far more toxic, obviously, than ammonium, for example, or the non-gaseous form. So, can't say enough about pH. It's essential that all of us maintain a pH test kit when you have an aquarium. Next up, water hardness, both temporary and permanent. Carbonate hardness and general hardness. We've got our KH-GH test kit right here. Now, GH is a measure basically of all the total mineral content in your water, and of course KH is temporary hardness. It is directly implicated in pH stability. It's basically kind of a measurement of the water's buffering capacity against acids in a tank. And by the way, KH value is super important for beautiful reef tanks like the ones back here, because corals absorb carbonates at a very rapid rate, especially hard corals, out of the water. So you need to be able to supplement with an alkalinity booster on a regular basis. Got to know the KH level. Got a planted tank, you need an iron test kit. And why do you need an iron test kit? Well, iron is an extremely important micronutrient for plants. It's directly implicated in a number of different systems within a plant. And of course, the end result is healthy growth and beautiful colors, especially for those plants that have a lot of red pigment. Knowing the iron content and supplementing it as necessary is really key. For you marine guys, calcium is a very important topic. You got to make sure that you have the right concentration in your marine aquarium, especially you reef guys. Calcium is important. It is absorbed by especially hard corals when they form their skeleton. They can rapidly deplete it in a fast growing type setup. You want to make sure to supplement on a timely basis. Now, even for you African cichlid guys, people with harder water fish, some of the African Great Lakes, for example, do contain a greater degree of calcium versus some of the other ones, so to maintain them with the best environment possible, knowing calcium levels is key. Last but not least, we have our master test kit over here, which contains pH, ammonia, nitrate, and nitrite, the 4 essentials of getting a new tank started, of course, and a convenient one-stop shop to make sure that you get off on the right track and at least equip yourself with a basic starter pack of test kits that everybody requires. So that's it for our overview video. Don't forget to stay tuned for our instructional video that's going to be coming at you shortly. We're going to go through all the details of taking the test to make sure that you get the most accurate results every time. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to subscribe below. If you've got any questions, please leave them below in the comment section as well.